Hey, free go, man. Let's get straight to the biz. Yo, before y'all even watch this study tool, hit that subscribe button. Go check out my SoundCloud. I am a hip hop artist. That is my #1 passion. I've been doing this lately just to keep y'all mind stimulated while I work on my album. But anyway, welcome to the Red Pill gang. You done popped the red pill. Y'all enjoy this intellectual study tool. What we finna learn about today is hurricanes, because all of this talk about hurricanes going on. One time for the H-Town, that's where I grew up most of my life. I moved a lot, but that's most of my my adolescent age. I got a lot of my roots from H-Town. I was born in Chicago, but Houston is where I went to high school. So shout out to the H-Town, and prayers to Florida, prayers to everybody involved with these hurricanes, man. One. Alright, so this one is BBC Worldwide, How a Hurricane is Born.
To understand why the US coastline is so vulnerable to hurricane strike, you have to travel over 4,000 miles east to the place where hurricanes are born. Most hurricanes in the Atlantic begin as very small atmospheric disturbances in the jet stream that flows from east to west over sub-Saharan Africa. Scientists call this disturbance an easterly wave.
An easterly wave.
What triggers the development of an easterly wave could be anything. Could be a little girl playing in the sand. It could trigger off a little dust devil, for example, that perturbs the atmosphere downstream in such a way that you get one of these waves.
What?
The easterly wave creates a system of turbulent eddies, which go on to develop into a cluster of thunderstorms.
They just said a little girl could start a hurricane by walking in the
These travel
sand.
west across the African continent, and then encounter the warm tropical waters of the Atlantic.
That's crazy.
One begins to see on satellite pictures is these thunderstorms appear to become better organized and begin to rotate around each other. The rotation rate increases, the storms become more vigorous, and winds continue to increase.
The storm rapidly gathers strength and develops into a hurricane, feeding off the warm, moist air coming from the ocean.
The heat is coming out of the ocean. The hurricane heat engine converts that heat energy into the mechanical energy of the winds. And that's what's powering the storm. When the winds reach typically around 70 miles per hour, the storm may develop an eye, surrounded by an eye wall, which is a region of very intense heat and the strongest winds.
So at 70 miles per hour, that's when the eyes form.
These
I didn't know
are
it was
hurricanes
hot
that make
in there.
landfall on the US every year, causing enormous damage.
Every year. That's deep. They said a little girl could start a hurricane. Hold up. Let me rewind to 30 seconds. Hold on.
What triggers the development of an easterly wave could be anything. Could be a little girl playing in the sand. It could trigger off a little dust devil, for example, that perturbs the atmosphere downstream in such a way that you get one of these waves.
The easterly wave creates a system of turbulent eddies, which go on to develop into a cluster of thunderstorms.
One easterly wave turns into a cluster of
These travel
thunderstorms.
west across the African continent, and then encounter the warm tropical waters of the Atlantic.
So they start in Africa. Y'all finna say some real questionable. Hold up. I don't know. I was told something about hurricanes taking the path that Christopher Columbus and them took across the seas. But I don't know. That's like some type of myth or some shit, or a legend. Alright, so this one right here is by E-Meteorology. It's called How Hurricanes Really Form. So we just checked out one. We're gonna watch this one too though.
Hurricanes are some of the most powerful and destructive storms on Earth. they can wreak absolute havoc when they hit land. Hurricanes are called typhoons in the West Pacific and cyclone in the Indian Ocean. But scientifically, they are known as tropical cyclones.
Okay.
So, how do these powerful and destructive storms form in the first place? Hurricanes need three main factors to flourish:
All right.
warm water,
1,
low upper level winds,
2.
and moist air.
Warm water, light upper level
Now,
winds,
hurricanes
and
usually
moist air.
form in the late summertime and early fall in the tropical Atlantic.
Facts.
A hurricane usually begins as an area of thunderstorm activity in the tropical regions of the earth, which are often called tropical waves. As the
Alright.
area of thunderstorm becomes more organized, air continues to condense. In other words, clouds are forming. This process of condensation releases heat into the air. This heat causes the air to rise and expand, which in turn decreases air pressure. So now eventually air from the surrounding area starts to flow into the tropical wave. Now this happens because of a basic law of nature. Air always moves from areas of higher pressure to lower pressure. So now when that air finally reaches the tropical wave, it too begins to condense. So now what you start having is this strengthening pattern.
Yeah, it starts picking
So
up
as
power,
more air
accumulated
flows
energy.
into the tropical wave, the storm continues to grow stronger.
Yeah.
Eventually the storm begins to rotate. Now, tropical cyclones rotate counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere, in other words, north of the equator, and clockwise in the southern hemisphere, in other words, south of the equator. Now, you will find out why they rotate that way in a future video. Now, if conditions remain favorable, in other words, if there is still fuel for the storm to develop, this rotating storm would continue to get stronger and stronger, and eventually it will become a hurricane. When a hurricane continues to strengthen and becomes powerful enough, a clear circular center starts to form. This is called
The
an
eye.
eye.
Yeah.
The strongest winds can be found near the eye, so the closer to the eye you go, the stronger the winds get. And the eye wall is the area near the eye, and the strongest winds can be found there.
But once you're in the
Now,
eye,
in
it's
the
peaceful.
strongest hurricanes, winds can reach over 200 miles per hour. Now, when the storm runs out of fuel, in other words, when it runs into cooler waters or hits land, the storm will eventually start to weaken and it will die off. And that's it. This is basically how a hurricane forms.
Word,
But
word.
there is more.
Pretty straight to the point. You know, nothing crazy. All of these are like pretty straight to the point. I rock with it. That's what we wanted this week. We wanted something straight to the point. No 30-minute videos. No none of that. Hurricane versus tornado. What's the difference?
Difference between a hurricane and a tornado. I'm commercial meteorologist Jason Myers, and they are both a testament to Mother Nature's fury. They both spin counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere, and they both cause loss of life and property each and every year. But they are far from the same thing.
Yeah, I didn't expect to see this. That's why I clicked
in
it.
very different ways. Hurricanes form in warm ocean waters. Moisture evaporates, rises, and begins to circulate. As the storm grows, winds continue to speed up, and eventually an eye forms around the middle. Tornadoes, on the other hand, spawn from thunderstorms. Rotation in different layers of the atmosphere within a thunderstorm create a funnel cloud that eventually reaches the ground. But neither one of these is necessarily more superior than the other. Difficult to compare, but something we can compare: size. Hurricanes can be
yeah.
hundreds of miles in diameter. The biggest tornado ever recorded had a damage path of a little more than 2.5 miles, but most are only 3 to 400 yards. In fact, tornadoes have been known to spawn inside a hurricane.
That's what I know.
Hurricane. Now round two. What about wind speed? Hurricanes may be bigger, but tornadoes still pack a punch for their size. Hurricane force winds range from 74 miles an hour for a weak storm all the way up to 157 miles an hour
For Category
or more
5.
for a catastrophic Category 5.
Yep.
A weak tornado starts out with winds around 40 miles an hour. but an EF5 tornado has winds anywhere between 261 to 318 miles an hour, much stronger than the strongest hurricane force winds. Point goes to tornadoes. Tie ball game.
I ain't know that.
What does more damage? Tornadoes do all their damage using those extremely strong rotating winds. Hurricanes, however, come with a triple threat. They use strong winds, heavy rains, and storm surge, bringing huge waves crashing on shore, causing more flooding. But even so, tornado and hurricane activity can vary from year to year, but study after study has shown that on average, they're both equally damaging and deadly. This one is a draw. But what lasts longer, has the endurance, the staying power,
Hurricane.
the stamina?
Obviously.
Hurricanes last for a few hours to a few weeks, and the average falls somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Tornadoes are on the ground anywhere between a few seconds to maybe a few hours for an especially strong storm, but the average is somewhere between 2 and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Hurricanes can go the distance.
Definitely.
Tornadoes and hurricanes vary on warning time as well. Since hurricanes take so long to form and do a lot of traveling before reaching land, people usually have plenty of notice.
Plenty,
to take
like,
cover or
I've been waiting on
evacuate.
Irma for about a
Watches
week,
are
bro.
typically issued 2 days ahead of time, and warnings are issued 36 hours before anything happens. Tornadoes are completely different.
They
Watches
instant.
are sometimes issued an hour or two ahead of time,
Yeah.
and the average warning time for a tornado is 13 minutes.
Yeah, they hit
Just enough
fast.
time to get to a safe place. Tornadoes are definitely scarier for this reason alone.
Yeah.
And now we've ended up with a tie, so it's settled. Don't mess with either of these.
Tie. I mean, I guess you really can't compare natural disasters like that, but I was curious about it because it was interesting to me to see them put hurricane versus tornadoes. Growing up in Houston, I seen a few hurricanes growing up, and during the hurricanes, we'll see tornadoes during the hurricane. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, why would you compare them if they, you know what I mean? They're two totally different things, but they kind of, they're not totally different. I guess, you know.
It's the deadliest hurricane to ever strike the United States. The Great Galveston Hurricane made landfall September 8, 1900. The Category 4 storm killed an estimated 8,000 people, though some estimates go as high as 12,000.
8,000?
What made this storm so deadly? I'm Storm Chief Meteorologist Jason Myers, and even though this is the deadliest storm to ever hit the U.S., it certainly wasn't the biggest, and it wasn't the strongest. What made this storm so deadly is the technology of the day and disregarding the forecast. In 1900, the only way we knew about hurricanes in the ocean was from ships that had been at sea and weather reports telegraphed from islands in the Caribbean.
Right.
In the weeks and days leading up to this hurricane, arriving ships had reported unsettled weather in the Atlantic. Then, damage reports started coming in from Cuba, then Florida, and along the coasts of Louisiana and Mississippi. A day before the storm made landfall, the U.S. Weather Bureau issued storm warnings from Pensacola, Florida, all the way to Galveston, Texas. Very few people took the warning seriously because most local meteorologists kept thinking the storm would make landfall elsewhere, contrary to what the Cuban meteorologists were saying. The day of the storm, ocean waves grew, winds picked up, and rain began to roll in. With a population of roughly 36,000 unevacuated people in a city only a little more than 8.5 feet above sea level and a storm surge of 15 feet, this was a recipe for disaster. 3,600 buildings were destroyed.
Damn.
Bridges to the mainland and telegraph lines were gone. So word of the destruction didn't even reach anyone until a handful of survivors could take a boat to the other side of Galveston Bay, making their way to Houston 2 days after the storm. Since 1900, we've been safer thanks to inventions like radio, television, and smartphones, all of which provide instantaneous weather warnings. We also have radar, satellites that provide 24/7 monitoring of the oceans where hurricanes form. We have Hurricane Hunter aircraft and drones, and our forecasts have improved greatly, all to protect life in hurricane-prone areas. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel.
What to know? They roll up the Atlantic Basin every year. It wasn't until '71 when the civil engineer and the meteorologist came up with a system. Alright, here we go. So category 1. 74 to 95 miles per hour, extensive damage to power lines, several days of power outage. That's not bad. It sounds like a regular storm. Category 2, 96 to 110 miles per hour, major roof and siding damage, near total power loss for several days to weeks. Category 3, major, 111 to 129 miles per hour, trees snapped or uprooted. Damn, this one starts getting real. Category 4, 130 to 156 miles per hour, the collapse of many exterior walls, power outages for weeks to months. Category 5, these the worst, 157 or higher. Dang, bro. 35 Category 5 Atlantic hurricanes in the last century. In 2005 alone, 4 Atlantic hurricanes reached Category 5s. Dang, that was yeah, exactly. Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Rita, which killed more than 1,800 people. I met a lot of great people because of Katrina, though. Shout out to Louisiana. Category 6. The strongest hurricane ever hit the Caribbean, Mexico. What? 190? They don't even talk about Category 6s. I never even heard of that. So that's what the Category 5 hurricane really is. It's any hurricane with sustained speeds over 157 miles per hour. Yo, I was sitting here editing the video and I forgot to do one more reaction. So we finna check out, why do we have hurricane names? That was like something I really wanted to know.
I'm Storm Shield meteorologist Jason Myers. Let's find out. The short answer is this. It's a whole heck of a lot easier and less confusing when we name hurricanes. Places that see a lot of hurricane activity, like the West Indies, have been naming them since the middle of the 19th century. They've named these storms after saints whose day occurred nearest to when the hurricane made landfall. At the end of the 19th century, an Australian meteorologist was naming storms too. But instead of saints, he mostly used the names of politicians because he couldn't think of anyone else who wandered around aimlessly and blew hot air. The rest of us were identifying these storms by their latitude and longitude, which, as you can imagine, wasn't very helpful for anyone not aware of their exact location at all times.
I was like, what?
Not to mention, it's a lot harder to say 21 degrees north, 70 degrees west, as compared to Hurricane Earl.
Facts.
It'd get even more confusing if there were two storms. Imagine throwing out all those coordinates and expecting people to follow. Occasionally, these storms would be named after the fact, usually named after something or some place it destroyed.
Yeah.
Not very helpful when you're trying to keep people safe
Ahead of time. Yeah.
Eventually, meteorologists started unofficially naming these huge destructive storms after their wives. Whether that was meant to be a compliment or an insult, I have no idea. In 1950, we got serious and started naming storms in alphabetical order. It was based on military terms. Think Abel, Baker, Charlie, Dog, and so on.
Wow.
It only lasted 3 years. It became a little confusing. So in 1953, we started using female names in alphabetical order similar to what we use today. By 1979, we started alternating women and men's names.
Equality,
One
man.
is sexist. Now,
Yeah.
6 different lists are used in rotation. Some of those storm names will be retired if they're especially deadly or expensive. Think Katrina or Andrew. If that's the case, the World Meteorological Organization gets together and picks replacement names chosen from the different countries
They
that
retire
could be
'em.
affected by these natural disasters. For Storm Shield, I'm meteorologist Jason Mott.
And there you have it, man. That's crazy. I was curious, like, why do we name them? When did we start naming them, etc.? So there you have it, man. Hit that subscribe button. Check out the all that good shit. And that's the way the cookie crumbles. Ooh. That was cool for the study too. If y'all do have any worries about the hurricane, like you live in Florida or anywhere near the coast, y'all be safe, man. For real. Don't underestimate the power of Mother Nature. And yeah, we're gonna sign out on that note, man. Hey, free go, man. Let's get straight to the biz. Y'all hit that subscribe button. Red Pill Gang signing out. Wolf Mob. Yeah.